Dad, did you know, just matter of fact, did you know that's the first time we've ever watched a movie and you haven't had your phone?
Wow.
Which was a dagger. It was like, come on, Gianna, fight fair here. So she said that and it didn't feel good, but what actually felt good was, oh wow, she noticed. She noticed this first time that I was present with her.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Follow Lead Podcast, a Christian Leaders podcast, powered by EBEB Solutions, energy benefits for every business. Go to ebebsolutions.com today and get your free energy audit. It will literally save you time and money. Welcome, friends. A couple episodes left in 2025. And hey, if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, guess what? The studio's under construction, so I apologize in advance. Not my normal setup, but I want to make sure that you get to listen to this episode with Joey Odom. Joey is the founder of Reclaimwell, and he is an expert in technology. And he unpacks the quiet but significant ways technology is actually shaping our presence at home, our ability to meaningfully connect and be in community, especially with our kids. He shares a lot of practical wisdom on modeling healing from digital rhythms, creating intentional moments of connection, and building memories that matter far more than screen time ever will. This is a very important conversation, and I wanted to release it right now because of the holidays and how valuable this time can be. So please be sure to check it out and check out what Joey does, the work that he does, some of the things that he's got going on. And before we jump into the episode, just a reminder, now is the time to sign up for our email list. Going into 2026, we're going to be doing something very special. But in order to receive the content that we're going to be producing alongside the podcast, you're going to need to get it off of the email list. So there's a link in the show notes, but you can also go to twmilt.com, TWMILT, sign up there, or shoot us a DM on Instagram and we'll get you all squared away. So now here's a quick word from our partners and my conversation with Joey Odom.
Joey, thank you so much for taking time to be on the podcast today. It's a true joy to be here, and I can't wait to dive into today's dialogue.
Tony, it's so good to see you. I feel like we're like a couple old Italian mobsters, Tony and Joey, just chewing the fat.
Hey, what are you doing?
Hey. Man, really excited. Pumped to hang.
Makes me want to get like a calzone for lunch real bad. Hey, I want to jump in. One of the things that you have said, I'm going to read this quote, and I'd love for you to drill down on it. If we don't do something, this could be the first generation of kids to someday die with more of other people's memories than memories they create on their own. Tell me about that quote.
This is the one, I would call this an anchor statement for us, Tony. We started our business about 5 years ago. And as we were in the research and development phase, we had a brilliant researcher who came back to us after all this research on the topic and the problem and the opportunity. And she came back and she said, hey, I just want to make sure you all understand this. I want you to hang on to this quote. So this is from our research team. And she told us that. And literally we were in tears just hearing the quote. And it's one of those things, Tony, that you have to, when it comes to this topic, when it comes to technology, it's very easy to go negative. Very, very easy. And I think almost that's the default setting, is to go negative when you talk about technology. And I think personally, this is the most hopeful opportunity any of us have, because we know it's a problem. And I also know, and we know that there is instant impact from this when you begin to make changes on it. But in talking about this, we don't want to avoid the truth. And that quote may feel negative, but it's not negative. It's the truth. And the first part of it is the biggest one, is if we don't do something. If we don't do something. In other words, this is not inevitable. Yeah. This feeling that we have and, these generation of kids, it's hopeless. No. That's only if we don't do something. So what I love about that statement is it communicates such a deep truth that we can all feel. Because we'll do things, if we just focus on the damage happening to us, we may do something about it, but when we know this is affecting our kids, when we know this has an impact on the next generation, hold on one second. We are protective over our kids and we'll do something about that. So it communicates that truth, but then it also communicates so much hope that says that if we do something, then this generation of kids will have memories for their lifetime of a life that they savored and moments that they enjoyed, and they spent time with people they loved. So it communicates truth, it communicates hope, and it does it in a way that I hope that people say the stakes are so high, I got to do something about that.
So let's say that somebody was riding in an elevator with you and they were like, hey, Joey, what do you do? How do you answer that question? Because there's so many different facets to kind of the work that you do, because the impact is so important.
Yeah.
How do you describe what you do and what your company does?
Yeah, I would say in a sentence, we create technology that helps people live face to face instead of face to screen. So we create technology for that. So we do this through a bunch of tools. And so it's a technology tools. It's through things like I go speak, to parent groups. I speak at churches. I speak at corporate events, and just giving them, wherever you are, an on-ramp into this ecosystem of doing something about technology. This a lot of what we do is based on a fellow Ohioan of yours, James Clear, Columbus guy who wrote Atomic Habits. James Clear says that a lot of people, when they don't accomplish their goals or accomplish their intentions, they often think they're lazy, but they just lack a system. And so what we are doing is practically using technology through an app, the Reclaim Well app, and then through what we call the RO box, a box that holds and charges your phone. We're doing that to help people experience more face-to-face time. It gamifies, it celebrates positive time away from your phone. We use technology to do that. And then we also do it through content, even using tools like Instagram, which again, I know that may seem counterintuitive. Even using an app, I may understand, it may feel counterintuitive, but we use those tools to inspire people and to give them practical tools to live face-to-face instead of face-to-screen.
Yeah, I think a lot of leaders will hear that and be like, yes, I want that. I need that. I've not recently ran into people who are thinking, man, I need more screen time in my life. I think we're all kind of on board with the idea. I think one of the questions I hear a lot is, what does healthy look like? What's a healthy relationship with my phone look like, Joey? Fix me, please. I
love that. No, it's such a good question. And that's, we lack some really clear language on this. And I would begin by saying a healthy relationship is one that you would want your kids to mimic. And so what we've done as parents, and a lot of people listening, I'm sure, are parents. As parents, we've gotten into what I call the 3M parent trap. The 3M parent trap is that we, as parents, and by the way, real quick preface, when it comes to this topic, it's very easy to feel shame. It's very easy to feel defensive, and it's very easy to feel blaming of others. And I want to encourage people who are listening, remove the shame. Shame's a lie. Remove the blame, remove the defensiveness. I'm not pointing fingers. We're all in this together. And remove the blame of others. How about we can all start with ourselves before we say it's somebody else's problem. So remove that as we talk about this. We're going to speak truthfully in a way that's going to be productive for you. But the 3M parent trap, as parents, here's what we've done is over the last 18 years since the iPhone came out, we have learned and we have modeled an unhealthy relationship with our phones. And here's what that looks like. An unhealthy relationship is having your phone really, to some degree, just in the wrong context. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with phones. I'm going to have this iPhone 17 for the next 35 and a half months with Verizon. But we have, in the wrong context, if I pull out my phone in the middle of a conversation with my daughter, that's not the right time. That's not the right time to do that. And so that's an unhealthy moment for that. Or I have my phone at the dinner table, or any other litany of things as we have modeled this bad relationship, an unhealthy relationship. That's the model. That's the first thing. Then we give our kids a phone someday and they do something very, very unsurprising, is that they mimic what we have modeled to them. So they have their phones at the dinner table, or they pull out their phone in the middle of a conversation with us and they phone snub us. But then we do something crazy with that third M, Tony, is that we have the audacity as parents to get mad at our kids for mimicking what we modeled to them.
Oh, wow.
Which is just crazy. So think about that. We have to ask ourselves constantly this question: am I modeling a relationship with my phone that I want my kids to mimic? Because the data tells us that the number one predictor of how your child will use a phone someday is how you use your phone today. So that's with parents. Let's talk about leaders. Let's Let's say that somebody comes in and wants to talk to you about their performance. They say, hey, I've been doing that. That takes some guts to do that, to go to the boss and ask how they're doing. if you pulled out right in the middle of that conversation, if you pulled out your phone and took a look at your screen, you have just killed that moment with that employee. You have diminished trust with them. If you imagine trust like a bathtub full of water and you pull the drain, you've just drained that water back, and it takes a lot more to instill trust back in that relationship. But what that has done, that's also communicated to them that, hey, that's an okay behavior to do. So it communicates one of two things. It communicates that's an acceptable behavior at our workplace, or it communicates that the boss is a hypocrite. And you don't want either of those. So I believe that unhealthy relationship all begins with context. Now, there are certainly, we can go to very nefarious things on looking at, online gambling or pornography or whatever that is. We can look at those things, but it does begin, I believe, with the context we're using our phones. And we can talk a lot more about how that may show up, or other ways you can define health within a relationship with your phone. And the relationship is an interesting word that we use when it comes to technology. But I believe as a parent, as a leader, the question should just be, do I want other people to mimic this behavior that I myself am modeling?
That is so good. And also the word, the 3 M's, right? Like getting mad about the way that our child uses our phone. I have teenagers. I have 19, 15, and 13. And as we record this week, we just had to take away our daughter's phone for not getting some chores done that were supposed to be done. And so the punishment was the phone and taking it away for a couple of days, and that process was painful for everyone.
Sure.
And it really has got me wrestling. This conversation couldn't come at a better time. It's got me wrestling with my relationship with my phone for the reason that you just said. Now, here's the thing I'm most scared of, if I can just be really honest. Yeah. I'm scared that as a leader in my community and an executive coach and a pastor, if I don't answer the phone or respond to the text, people will stop calling or texting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And slowly I'll fade away until irrelevance.
Sure. Hey, absolutely valid. And here's a really interesting thing. I want to invite people into this, and it's not going to feel very, very satisfying because of all of our needs for black and white answers. I just want to, and this may also calm some nerves. I want to invite you into the gray waters of this discussion. You are holding a tension that is absolutely valid. It would be a lot easier. Our business would be, Tony, it'd be so much easier if we could just say phones are bad. It would be so much easier. It's such an easier message to say phones are bad. But that's not true. My grandfather passed away a couple of years ago, and we FaceTimed from his hospital room in Arizona, and me in Georgia at the time. And we talked and we shared some of the last few hours of his life. We shared a few minutes, and he told me he loved me and he was proud of me. And that was made possible by smartphones. That was made possible by FaceTime and my iPhone. And so how wonderful and what a gift this is. At the same time, we also have to realize in the wrong context, it's bad. That we could also use I don't want to be facetious too much, but think about that example I said of the leader taking out a phone in the middle of a conversation. Let's just replace phone with a book. Let's just say in the middle of a conversation with an employee, I took out a book and I started reading. That would look equally silly. It would be equally offensive. It would kill the moment in an equal way. So we're just talking about a medium that's getting in the way of other relationships. Mm-hmm. So one thing that I really, really encourage is this is not a goal for you to go spend every day fully apart from your phone. This gets into, and they'll get into a lot deeper discussion. This gets into moments of potential fruitfulness. The Bible has over 300 references to fruit and fruitfulness and unfruitfulness. The fruitfulness is the result or reward of work or activity. And every piece of fruit came from a seed. And so you think, okay, I'm going into a moment right now. Let's think about you go on a date night with your spouse. I'm going into a date night with my spouse. That is a potential moment of fruit. And the thorns, as Jesus talks about in the parable of the sower, the thorns had threatened to choke out the fruit, choke out the word, making it unfruitful, choke out that moment. Our phones are digital thorns, and they represent a threat to all the good things we have in our lives. Now, if we don't, I like to tell people, our phones over time will start to choke out that fruit. So you have to prune them back all the time. In fact, you can use this line, before they attack, I must prune the thorns back. So you have to be constantly conscious of that. That does not mean, however, that you have to get rid of your phone forever. So going back to the date night discussion, I can do this for 45 minutes. I can hand my phone to my wife for 45 minutes. Hey, I'm going into a potential moment of fruit. I'm having a meeting with somebody that I care about. That employee is coming in. I can put my phone over there in the credenza for 30 minutes. I don't know if people still use credenzas, Tony. I don't know if that's still a thing, but let's just say use a credenza.
I'm in the Midwest. Of course we do.
There you go. So instead of beginning with, I have to be off my phone all the time. How about I'm going into a potential moment of fruit? There is seed in this moment that I want to become fruit. So in this moment, I'm going to remove my phone. And then when you say to yourself, it's time for me. I had 7 text messages. I'm going to reply to those 7 text messages right now because it's time for that. So this all goes back very largely into context and your intentions in the moment. I bet you don't want to phone snub your wife in the middle of a date night, but if you have the thorns, those digital thorns in your hand or your pocket, it's going to be pretty hard to overcome those. And all of a sudden, the fruit of that time with your wife is going to be choked out by those digital thorns.
That's so good. I love the idea about, pruning back the thorns. And I think it's a constant process of pruning. I think
That's
you're
right.
And being surrounded by good people and having that dialogue and knowing that your advice probably can't be trusted on its own. How do you promote community around this discussion? Because I know that, one of kind of the trends that I see in all of the work that you do is like, hey, this isn't just about you. This is about the bigger community. Yeah. What are some practices that maybe we can steal from your family or from your work? Or how do you guys have this dialogue without the judgment and shame parts and still, encourage one another, as the scripture says, like, hey, don't give up meeting as some are in the habit of doing, but spur one another on towards love and good deeds. How do we do that well?
It's a several. I'll start. There are a few different rings to that. Let me start on outer rings and move inner. I believe if you are a follower of Jesus, you have an absolute unfair advantage of community already built in. Jonathan Haidt, brilliant social psychologist from NYU who wrote the book, The Anxious Generation. Jonathan Haidt is an atheist himself, but he says that religious communities, this is a quote from him, religious communities have a magical ability to create new norms in society. And they do that because of the concept of collective action. A collective action problem is a problem that's very difficult to solve on your own, but becomes much easier when you do it in the context of a group. So if you can begin within a large community, and so if you're a pastor and you're listening, I would encourage you, talk about this from the pulpit. Even if you've not gotten it right, I guarantee you a lot of the things you preach on, you've not gotten right yourself, and that's okay.
Amen.
So begin to talk about this. I go and I speak at churches. I was preaching last weekend at a church down in Florida. I did a parent night for that same church, go in and do corporate events. We talk about these things. Let's bring them out into the open to spur on future discussion. So begin as your church, start from the pulpit. Hey, have a small group series talking about this. Hey, have little breakouts on this. Have a parent night and keep that dialogue. One of the things we always tell people, we have 5 S's to reclaim your life from your phone. One of them, the last one, is just stop at nothing. Just keep going. You're going to have days of success. You're going to have moments of failure. All of it's okay. The thorns are going to try to grow back. And so you have to, before they attack, you must prune them back. And so start with those larger communities. That's the big one. Within the workplace also, one of the things we do as a business is we provide this as a cultural reinforcement, a tool, a wellness benefit that companies will say, hey, I want to provide this to all of my people. And I want to provide it as a wellness opportunity and really a cultural reinforcement. So you have an ability to begin that, have that discussion over a lunch and learn. If you're a large organization, bring in somebody. This is not a promotion for me, myself, somebody else who can come in and let's just have this conversation about what it looks like. Because even if you require your phone at work, you want your people to be healthy. And so when they're at home, you want them to be able to have moments of soaking in these great moments of life apart from their phones without the threat of you necessarily pinging them on their phone at all hours of the night. So that's one, that's the inner ring. The very inner ring is for you as a family unit. One of the biggest reasons, Tony, that people, when we say, like, if someone calls and they cancel, their subscription with us, we'll very often ask what the reason was. And I would say 9 out of 10 times that this has happened, it's the same one, and it breaks my heart, it's a wife, 95% of the time a wife, saying, I couldn't get my husband on board. Which breaks my heart too. And it makes me want to go, just come on, buddy. Like your wife is asking you for presence. Your wife is asking you for intimacy. Your wife is trying to bring in a tool. So the number one thing I say to spouses is align with your spouse. get on the same page. This can become such a big piece of your household culture. Your kids crave this. I don't care if they're like yours and they're 19, 15, 13, whatever the ages are, or if they're 9, 5, and 3, your kids crave connection with you. And when I say this is the greatest opportunity we have, it's because it unlocks so many other things. That when you change your relationship with your phone, you change your relationship with everyone around you. And so this can begin in the church of your home. This can begin in your church to just simply align with your spouse and then level up and ask your kids. Say to your kids, I don't care how old they are, hey, are there times and places that maybe I'm on my phone too much? You'll get a mouthful of an answer from your child if you ask that, but just open-ended ask that. By the way, our kids are probably already volunteering this. We hear this all the time. The kids will say, even 2, 3 years old, mommy, no phone, daddy, no phone. Or 8 or 9 years old, mom, you're on your phone. So dad, you're always on your phone. I would encourage in the alignment with your spouse and your family, the one word I would attach to that for you is humility. Have the listening ears and the humble heart to hear the heart of what they're saying to you. If they're saying, dad, you're on your phone too much, that's not what they're saying. What they're saying is, dad, I want you to pay more attention to me. Dad, I want your eyes on my eyes instead of your screen. So, Tony, yes, does it feel negative? Maybe. Is it truthful? Yes. But even more than that, this is so unbelievably hopeful. Your child wants your eyes on them. They like you and they believe they're valuable enough to have someone looking at them. That is what we dream of as parents. So what an opportunity for us to do something about it.
You know, I'm so curious. How does somebody who's clearly a gifted communicator, who's passionate, who's really articulate, how does somebody like you go ahead and start a technology health company, right? Like, it seems like such a niche field. You're like, oh, I'm thinking about maybe starting I could start any business in the world and I'm going to co-found a community that's dedicated to helping people get healthier with technology.
I mean, I would say this is the main way. I would say the only way. I'm trying to think of a better answer for this, but the true answer is just abject failure. Completely missing the mark all the time. I had another career before and I just found myself losing myself. You think of the line, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul? I was losing my soul, Tony. Like there's no other way around it. And so my business partner, Heath co-founded and sold a business, sold to NASDAQ in 2017, did very well in the exit, retired in his 40s. And he shot me a text one day and he goes, hey, I got an idea. Let's go to lunch and talk about it. And because of years of failure when it came to being distant and missing moments, when I heard this idea, I said, we have to do this. We have to do this. And starting a business is difficult. And trudging through all the pivots and doing everything that you do is difficult. But the thing that keeps coming back to us is the world needs this. Families need this. And again, I love there are screen time solutions and there are great speakers on this. And I feel like we've linked arms with all of them is because it's a rising tide because of how desperate this need is and how unbelievably massive the opportunity is for families to experience life in such a different way. I'm telling you, C.S. Lewis has a great line in Screw Tape Letters and talking about temptation. He says, murder is no better when a deck of cards can do the trick. Talking about how Satan tempts us. So why on earth would Satan use something, a capital S sin like murder, when all he has to do is just drip, distract us all the time, just small little distractions. So, and then I believe this is the greatest threat to the thorns, but it unlocks something beautiful. So that's a circuitous way to answer your question. But the true answer to all of that is just by failure and seeing that, hey, I need this myself. And if you were to ask my wife and kids, they would tell you, hey, it's a different Joey than the person who started this business, the person prior to this business. And that's worth a heck of a lot more than the career I was on before, the path I was on before.
When you think about the process of bringing this up, I mean, your website's beautiful. Your technology, it looks great. It's super easy to use. I'm sure it didn't start that way. What's been the story of, Reclaim Well in terms of like its growth process? How did you know that like, hey, this thing actually has some legs?
The early breadcrumbs that we found were stories. Is when we would hear a story of the Daniel family who lives in Houston, who their 2 and 4-year-old would tell. They would say things like "Mommy, no phone." That was that line. I said that earlier, and it came from them. "Mommy, no phone," and her saying that everything within months, what's normal to them is totally shifted. And so hearing those stories, it's just like, okay, there's, that old story, like there's a starfish back in the water. There's one. Okay, that's good. And it's just like any business. I'm sure leaders feel this. It's following. We all want a yellow brick road, but really what we're just following are breadcrumbs. And so we're following breadcrumbs. And the thing that keeps moving us along is these are the stories that we're hearing. There's a line I love, and you have to ask yourself a question on a business is not what do you want this business to become? What does this business want to become? So we follow some of that. I mean, that's ramped up some of this. A lot of the speaking I do is that people want to hear on this. They want to hear truth. They want to hear things they can write down. They want to take notes. That's been a big part of it. Our move into the corporate space has been another part of that, is that we always thought this was just for consumers and families love it. But then hearing companies who said, hey, I really want this for my staff. I want to tell my staff that they should care about this, or I know they care about it. So we want to help meet that need. So it goes back to all of that. It's just following breadcrumbs, and even who knows what the next 6, 12, 10 years look like on the business and how we'll continue to pivot. But if we can anchor to that beginning, is that we believe that life is greater on the other side of screens, and we're going to help solve that for people, then that for us is enough of the motivation as we continue to hear the stories of life change, we're just going to keep following those breadcrumbs.
One of the things I'm always curious about is when companies are blur the lines, because I love it, between secular company and Christian company. And you guys are overtly Christian and you serve anyone. What's it been like for you guys to enter into the tech space, which is not always known for like welcoming Christian companies? Sometimes they get relegated to like the kids table, in my opinion, just through a lot of conversations I've had with podcasting. And yet you guys have seem like you do it really well. What's that process been like to say, hey, we're Christian, we're here, and we can help you whether you're Christian or not?
It's been really clunky. To answer it's been very clunky. We began in this business. We said, hey, we're driven by our faith, but that's not going to be the front facing thing. And I just found myself on conversations like these trying to veil my faith, which seemed very weird and disingenuous, in an effort to appeal to everyone, which probably meant that it appealed to no one. And then when you see the deep truth of the Bible, and this is so true, I referenced the digital thorns. That comes from Jesus's most famous sermon on phones, which was the parable of the sower. He says that the thorns, we talked about that. The thorns choke out the seed, making it unfruitful. Said the thorns represent the worries of life, the pleasures of life, and the deceitfulness of wealth. We can unpack all of that, and I have a sermon on all of that. But it really, there's no greater vessel for the worries of life, pleasures of life, deceitfulness of wealth than our phones. And so when you see the deep truth in the Bible, and you see but at the same time, this will apply whether you believe in a risen Savior or not. Nothing about our product. There are no Bible verses in our product. There's nothing inherently faith-centric about the actual RO box or the Reclaim Well app. There's nothing faith-centric about that. So this will apply, anybody listening, whether you believe in a risen Savior or not. But we also couldn't hold ourselves back from saying, no, this is who we are. This is what drives us. We're not going to jam it down somebody's throat. That's not something that we're going to enforce on somebody, but this is absolutely what drives us. And I love all the work that Jonathan Haidt has done. And he is an atheist. I value that. And I love that. He's very friendly to the faith community. At the same time, I would also like to see people who love Jesus leading this discussion and not just following behind culture. I think we can lead. It's funny enough, the title of this podcast, Follow to Lead. I think one we can model to lead. That we don't, if you think about discipleship as learn, live, lead, we often in the church like to go learn and then lead before we live it. And so what if instead we modeled to culture what this could look like? And here's what will happen is that people will see our good works and glorify our Father in heaven. They'll see that. There's this line that's always attributed to St. Francis of Assisi, which is debatable if he actually said it, but it says, preach the gospel at all times, and if necessary, use words. So I'll say something shocking here, is that in 2025, the greatest way to preach the gospel without words is to be off your phone in public.
Wow.
Now it doesn't end there, but it starts there. is that people are going to see when you take notice of somebody. This was the distinctive of Jesus, is that he knew there was deep pain in any room he entered. And so as a result, he just walked slower and he looked up and he made eye contact and he listened more intently and he asked one more question. This is the distinctive of Jesus. So this not only is the greatest opportunity we have in our relationships, but this is the greatest opportunity we have to preach the gospel simply by being off our phones and noticing what's happening around us. So it's for us, this is where our faith is so intertwined. We can't escape it. And I think we can still continue to make better strides in it. That we as an organization, we have challenged ourselves to live more faith-filled lives. It's almost like in business, you live in a level of hope, but not faith. Hope is kind of based on sight. Faith is the assurance of what we don't see. And so we're being challenged continually in this direction, and also saying, but we also want to serve people who don't believe in a risen Savior. So it's a lot. It's clunky. It's just like the technology discussion. It's gray waters. We're navigating through and we're doing the best we can. We're relying on the Holy Spirit to guide us.
I'm always interested listening to someone who has so much conviction, so much passion, who's also operating at a really high level. So you're helping the company, obviously, as a visionary. You're the outward facing voice for the company, and you still have a family at home and you're living your life. And so one of the questions that I want to ask you is about your daily disciplines. We say around here a lot is that if you aren't dedicated to your disciplines, you'll be destroyed by your distractions.
Love it.
And so what are the things that you do on a regular basis that brings the best version of Joey into the workplace and into life?
This is a practice over the last 2 months, and it may shock you because I think about being off my phone all the time. But I was challenged by a message that I heard from Addison Bevere. Addison Bevere is the son of John Bevere. Addison preached a message, and it was all around the first hour of your day, the first fruit of your day, not looking at your phone. And that's maybe not a terribly new message, but the way he articulated it was brilliant. And I thought, okay, this is new for me. The first hour of my day, I am absolutely not looking at my phone. Now, this goes back to the parable of the sower. The worries of life consume us really at the beginning of the day. It's funny about that whole, the worries of life are in the beginning of the day. The deceitfulness of wealth is kind of in the money-making times in the middle of the day. And then the pleasures of life tend to hit us in the evenings. So there's a rhythm to our day with that. Wow. So really, really interesting. But the worries of life hit us in the beginning of the day. So that first hour of the day, just not looking at my phone, which what does that mean? That means I can't have my phone in my bedroom overnight. So it sleeps in another room. I can, by the way, if someone's saying my phone's my alarm clock, I have a $12 haptic watch that I bought on Amazon and it's wonderful. So that's one is I begin the day without my phone. My disciplines in the morning, I do 3 things. I journal. I have a 5-year journal, by a company called Levenger that I love. I'm a 5-year journal. So it looks back on, your 5 years. I read a book by a guy named Brooke Moser. It's called Sowing a Hidden Seed. It's really good. It just came out, and it's 30 days of reflection and prayer for your children in 31 different areas. It's called Sowing a Hidden Seed. Great book. And then I read the Bible. I normally go through a Bible reading a year. Right now, I'm really in the Psalms. I'm just kind of digging into the Psalms. Those 3 things in the morning before I do anything. And I know the days I've not done that. By the way, this has been coming to that has been a multi-year journey. So I would encourage people. This is, Jesus says, the parable of the sower, that people, they produce a crop by persevering. So that's a key word, is by persevering. So stick in it for the long haul. So that's one big thing for me. I get in the gym, or I work out. I do, get in the gym 3 days a week. I do walks. I've really gotten into walking, which seems like such an old person thing to say, but walking is great. Put on a weight vest, go on a walk. So do something physical. So that's the beginning of my day. And then at the end of the day, I'm always very, very careful. Hey, let's make sure that when I have that quality time, the beginning of the day is really for myself, and then the end of the day is really with others. And so the key is, let me put my thorns away. Let me make sure I don't bring my thorns into a fruit party. And that could be that fruit being the time that I have with my family and just spending that time away from it. So that's how some of it looks. I'm sure there are other things I'm not thinking of. And by the way, it's an imperfect process. Am I doing that 7 days a week? I'm not sure. There are probably days that I miss on those, but those are some of those. But I will say that foundation of the day, that very beginning, to me is the most thing that gets me set for the rest of the day.
One of the things I know about our community, the Bold Ones, is that they are both driven and they are faithful. And I think one of the tensions that often runs into that is this idea about like, hey, how do I be faithful in my business and also be driven to do the work that pays for the business and pays for everyone along the way? And so I'm always curious when I talk to a leader like you, who's leading a company that has such a faith-driven message, how do you guys as a company measure success?
We measure it just like anybody else, and it's revenue is the oxygen to a business. So we look at it very practically. We are here absolutely to build a business that is very successful. I've heard this before. I don't know if it's right or not, but I like how it sounds, that the etymology of the word profession is the means by which you profess Christ. So who are you going to listen to? You're going to listen to a successful business owner when they represent Jesus, or you're going to listen to an abject failure? I think you listen to somebody who's done really, really well. So I think our platform for the profession of Christ increases. Now, we all understand the danger in that, because you can sacrifice everything else and you can say, someday I'll glorify God through my business. So you got to be a little bit careful there. But I think we constantly challenge ourselves. Hey, we got to double down on our effort. We got to double down. We got to continue to do really well. It's the idea we mentioned the faith side of things, but we all know faith without works is dead. So if we are purely relying on faith and we're not doing our part in it, it's not going to work. So we can activate our faith through what we do, through our works, also recognizing that God has put deeply inside of us a need for rest, that he's given us that Sabbath day rest. He forces us to rest at night. The greatest form of torture still in thousands of years of people torturing each other is sleep deprivation. So God has put inside of us this need to have rest. So it's a little bit of everything. So I would say in building a business, we recognize we have been called to steward this well. And we do not want to be called a wicked and lazy servant because we didn't increase what God has given to us. So we think about all of that. That's probably a combination of a lot of thoughts, but I think all of that kind of combines together to say, no, that drives us. We got to do great. We have to do great work. We have to be successful so we can expand our platform. And when we expand our platform, we're able to more effectively profess Jesus.
That's so good. I think it's so important. I like the practical and the abstract application of it all. I have one more question for you, but before I ask, I know that the Bold Ones are going to want to find you all over the interwebs, and your stuff works with organizations, it works with churches, it works for individuals and family units as well. So it really does hit at all levels. Where is the best place to learn all things Joey and all things Reclaim Well?
I would begin at reclaimwell.com, reclaimwell.com. I can give you a couple others. We are on Instagram. That's at Reclaim Well app. Also, if you want the RO box, that's goro.com, GOARO.com. Reclaimwell.com that's kind of the hub for all of this. If you're looking for speaking, that's also reclaimwell.com. The speaking tab there, if you're interested in bringing in a speaker, whether you're a church or a corporation, I would begin all with reclaimwell.com.
That's amazing. And again, as I've started to dive into some of this stuff, it's really easy to use. I can't recommend it enough. Getting everybody on board family wise has been the biggest challenge is hey, because we have the RO box, you were very kind enough to send me one, and I really enjoy it. Looks good. It feels good. It's just now getting everyone to buy into the idea.
Sure.
How do we do it together? So, which I'm excited about.
Which is so fun. And this is where we as fellas, we want to do everything. We want to do everything all at once. And the truth is it's small, it's iterative steps. In fact, for guys, I encourage guys to model it well themselves for 30 days before you ask anybody else to participate, unless you've already come in alignment with your spouse. I'd say, hey, if you're like me, if some of the bold ones are like me, we will boldly, because we're bold ones, we will tell everybody, I get real excited. Hey, we're going to do this thing right now. And they say, Dad, you have a lot of ideas. So they're probably waiting for us to see if it sticks with us first.
Sure.
So begin to model it well. Here's what I will promise. If you do that over time, someone's going to notice. Someone's going to point it out. They're going to notice that something is different. My daughter, Gianna, this is right around when we were starting our business, Gianna and I watched a movie together. This was May 8th, 2020. I know this because I wrote it in that 5-year journal I mentioned. May 8th, 2020, we watched a movie. She's 10 years old. At the end of the movie, she turns to me and without judgment and without congratulations, she said something to me that cut to my heart. She said, Dad, did you know, just matter of fact, did you know that's the first time we've ever watched a movie and you haven't had your phone?
Wow.
which was a dagger. It was like, come on, Gianna, fight fair here. So she said that, and it didn't feel good, but what actually felt good was, oh wow, she noticed this first time that I was present with her. So fast forward 4 years, May 8th, 2024, I read that in my 5-year journal, that moment from 4 years before. And I asked Gianna, who's 14 at this time, I said, Gianna, do you remember saying that to me? And she laughed and she said, Dad, it would be so weird if you had your phone during a movie now. Wow. So let's think about that, Tony. All of a sudden, in 4 years, I say all of a sudden, but slowly over 4 years, what is normal for her, which was my partial presence at the time, had become totally abnormal. Normal for Gianna now is my attention fully focused on hers. And this is going to have an impact. And this is why it's so important for everybody here. This is going to have an impact not only on your children now and your lives now, but Andy Crouch says that multi-generational change, real change happens over 3 generations. So this is going to change Gianna and my relationship now, but it's also going to reshape what she expects for a relationship in the future. So whenever she starts dating or when she's getting close to choosing a spouse, it's going to affect that relationship. And then what's it going to do? It's going to affect her kids someday, which will be my grandchildren, and it'll affect their kids. So what you do today matters. And it's going to reverberate in the lives of your future grandchildren who aren't even born. And if that's not motivation for us to take some action today, even if it's a small step, and it probably should be a small step, but again, let's stop at nothing. And by persevering, we will produce a crop 100 times more than what was sown. So that's why it's those stories. That's what keeps us going. That's what keeps us driving. This is why it's so important for people to know over time in small ways, just take small steps every single day. You're building a muscle here, and you do that slowly over time by doing all the right things daily that it requires to build muscle.
So good. So good. Last question I love to ask people. It's an advice question. I'm going to invite you to go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, but I get to name the season of life that you're in.
Love this.
So I want to take you back to the end of your very first day at the company, right? If you could go back, sit knee to knee with that younger version of yourself, look him in the eye and give him one piece of advice, knowing that it's not going to change any outcomes, but it might just change his mindset, what would you tell him?
I would tell him that this is going to take a lot longer than you think. Like that would be it. I don't even know that I would say this is going to be a lot harder. I don't even know that I would tell him that this is totally worth it. You are going to make a bunch of impact. I would just say this is going to take a lot longer than you think. And that's what we've learned is that this takes a long time, and we're in it. That's the fun thing, is we're in it. And in the meantime, here's what's cool. There's a verse in the Old Testament that you probably know since you know the Bible more than me, but it was something like God was saying, I'm going to give them the land, but I'm not going to give it to them all at once. But if I did, wild animals would overtake it. So if God would have given us everything all at once, that would have been a really hard thing for us to steward. And it probably would have convinced us it was because we were so smart. But the way that we have seen God's kindness and goodness and patience, and it put us in a place of really looking towards the daily bread, and it's reshaped. I think my imagination at the beginning of this journey was, hey, let's go build $1 billion company. That was the peak of my imagination, Tony. And now God has reshaped my imagination. And what he's reshaped in my imagination is you can steward this, and it can have multi-generational impact in the lives of families. And I would much rather that. And is the outflow financial outcome? I'm not sure, maybe, but that's not the point. In other words, probably see God's kingdom first and the rest will be added unto you. But the peak of my imagination, as it's been reshaped, has completely segued away to financial. And if that would have happened, if we would have just exploded on the scene from day one, I think my imagination still would have been so limited to only thinking about finances.
Wow. I love that. You're not gonna out imagine the creator. That's for sure.
Yeah. Come on.
Joey, this has been so much fun. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for your generosity. I hope and pray that we both can stay connected as we see what God does through your work. And I just can't wait to see what he does next.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate it.
Hey friends, welcome to the 3 in 5, 3 practical takeaways in 5 minutes or less. Number 1, you know this already. Presence is the greatest gift you can give your family. Choosing intentional moments of connection helps create memories that screens can never replace. That's right. Your family needs you. It needs you to be there. Show up, be present. Number 2, model the behavior you want to see. That's right. Kids follow what you do more than what you say. And that's actually true for the people that you work with. It's true for everyone around. What you do is far more important than what you say. So what are you modeling? Number 3, success isn't measured in numbers. It's measured in fruit. That's a good one. Joey reminds us in this dialogue that real success shows up in relationships, community, the impact made in everyday life, not just financial outcomes. So maybe one of the questions that you and your business need to wrestle with this year is, how are we measuring fruit? The important stuff. All right, let's revisit them. 3 and 5. Number 1, presence is the greatest gift you can give your family. Number 2, model the behavior you want to see. And number 3, success isn't measured in numbers. It's measured in fruit. Well, friends, that's our episode for today. Thank you for staying all the way to the end. You are one of the bold ones. We appreciate having you in this community and wouldn't do it any other way. Without you, this is not the same. So thank you. Thank you for being a part of this community, and thank you for being a part of what God is doing here. If there's anything I can do for you, you know I'm easy to get a hold of at TW on Instagram or Tony@twmilt.com via email. Don't forget, sign up for the newsletter. Something big is coming. I'm really excited about it. There'll be an episode out really soon explaining all of the details. Until then, remember, if you want to follow Jesus, you must be willing to move.